So I'm going to take you back to when I was 20 years of age and I was in a tournament in Ireland. And this tournament was a futures tournament. Now, futures is the first level of professional tennis. This is where you first get a world ranking. And in order to get a world ranking, you have to win 3 matches in qualifying and 1 match in the main draw. And I'd never done this at this point. I'd never got through qualifying at this point. It's very difficult. There's often world ranked players in qualifying. It's a good level. And this tournament in Ireland, I got through qualifying and I got into the main draw. And this was the biggest match of my life. If I was to win this match, I was going to get my world ranking. I was going to be officially a tennis player, a professional tennis player. Okay, it's going to make my life getting into tournaments easier, more fear, more respect from the opponents. It's going to look great at my CV as a coach going into the future, yada, yada. So this was a huge match. This is a big deal for a lot of players at my level at the time. And I finished my last match qualifying on Saturday, and my first round match would be on the Monday, so I had a day off. Now, I traveled with 2 other players, and they both lost in qualifying, and one of the guys lost in the last round of qualifying, and he had match point. He got really unlucky. The guy hit a fluky return on match point, okay, landed on the line. Anyway, he lost the match, and he was absolutely devastated, right? And he decided he was going to go out for the night and drink his sorrows away and just go for a piss up. And he said for me to come, and I said, look, man, I'm not going to come. I've got the biggest match of my life on Monday. He's like, I just come 1 drink. So, all right, fine. I'll have 1 beer and I'll leave. Fast forward to 4 a.m. and I'm absolutely off my trolley. Right, I am steaming drunk all over the gaff, chasing some Irish skirt. Just terrible, man. Absolutely terrible. Okay. The next day, I'm hungover, feeling like crap, and then Monday turns around, and obviously I lose. I lose on Monday. And for years, I asked myself the question, why the hell did I do that? Biggest match of my life, and I went out and just destroyed any chance that I had by going out and getting wasted. Ridiculous decision. Worked my whole life to get to that stage, and I just throw it away like that. And so for years I would say to myself and I'd say to others, yeah, if I didn't go out that night, I could well have won the match. I would have given myself, it would have been close. I kept telling myself that, at least it would have been close. I'm sure it would have been. And this is the sneaky thing. This is the self-sabotage that people have. They sabotage themselves in these moments. And that was me self-sabotaging. And so many people do it. And they do it so they can tell themselves the story. It's much easier to be able to tell yourself the story further down the line that, oh, you know what, I would have made it. I would have made it if I was more dedicated. I would have made it if I didn't go out and drink and all the time. And that wasn't my first time. I used to go out. I'd have a match on a Monday. I used to go out Saturday regularly. And this is why people do it. They tell themselves it's easier to tell yourself that story and to tell others that your potential was actually a legend. And the reason they do that, the reason they self-sabotage in that way, and I'm sure many of you will relate to this now, is because you're scared of finding out you're not good enough. And that was the case with me, the case with many others, and I'm sure quite possibly the case with you, that people self-sabotage because they're so scared of giving it everything they got and failing and realizing they ain't good enough. They're not talented enough. They're not strong enough. They're not smart enough. So, along the way, they self-sabotage. And this is very common. It's actually very common. I spoke to my wife about this, and she comes across it all the time in her clinical practice as a psychologist. And there's a couple of things that we can do that I wish I did. And there's a couple of things that you can do to combat this. Firstly, you have to realize, yes, it may feel like initially it's easier to tell yourself that sweet little lie, and that you could have been a legend if you didn't self-sabotage. But the thing is, it's sneaky, because actually in reality it's harder to live like that, because you have to live with the regret. And the regret is horrible to live with. I have to live with that regret now. I have to live knowing that I fucked that day up, and I fucked up my career, my chances of being a professional. Or at least, finding out how good would I have been. I have to live with that regret now, and so do many others. And that's harder to live with. So you have to tell yourself that in the now, in the present, that I don't want to live with that regret. And secondly, a really, really powerful technique that you should be doing on the way to achieving what you want to achieve is, yes, visualization is incredibly important, and you should visualize that success. We've all heard this, right? We've all heard you have to visualize the outcomes and living the life and the confidence, blah, blah, blah. But you actually also have to visualize the failure, the defeats. And I first heard and come across this when I was listening to John Jones, the UFC heavyweight champion right now, when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Joe Rogan asked him what was his, like, did he have any mental visualization practice? And he said, yeah, like, I'll visualize winning 60-70% of the time, but I don't know, visualize losing. And the reason was because when you can visualize yourself losing in the most, or failing in the most embarrassing way, right? For John, it was getting knocked out and everyone taking the piss out of him and yada, yada, yada. If you can do that and visualize and imagine yourself in that scenario, and then you'd actually realize that, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to wake up the next day and my life's going to go on. And, you know, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst case actual thing that's going to happen here is that I just lost. I just failed and my life will go on. And so if you can visualize that defeat, that failure in your mind and become okay with that, and knowing that life will go on, knowing that I'll have another chance, another opportunity, try something else, or maybe it's the best thing to happen to me and it opens up another door somewhere else, whatever it is. This is very, very important because people are so scared of fear of failure that they don't give it their absolute best. So this can eradicate that fear, certainly alleviate it in a big way, take a lot of pressure off, and go in there very much fearless. So that's my advice to you guys. What do you think?